Today's podcast is brought to you by Stealth Outdoors. The off-season's a great time to rehab your gear, so head on over to Stealth Outdoors at www.stealthoutdoors.com to pick up some climbing stick wraps, cam buckle covers, platform cable wraps, or stealth strip rolls for all of your miscellaneous silencing needs. Today's show is also made possible by Hunting Beast Gear, innovators in mobile hunting gear and the designers of the Beast Sticks and Beast Stand. Check out the latest products at www.huntingbeastgear.com. And now,
All right. Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Hunting Beast Report. I'm your host, Scott Biskobing, and we are joined, as always, by the man himself, the big buck serial killer, Dan Infalt. How are we doing tonight, Dan?
I'm alive.
Classic. Glad to hear. We're happy to hear that, Dan. We're glad to hear that you're alive and alive. Not maybe doing well, but not doing bad. But alive.
Oh, wait, it's not Monday, right? It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. It's still early in the week. So tonight we are joined by a special in-studio guest here, Brad Werwinski, longtime friend of mine and follower of the Hunting Beast and everything Dan's got going on as well. So
yeah, thanks a lot for having me on.
Absolutely.
Cool.
It probably looks a little bit different for you guys tonight than our usual layout, but Brad's a local guy here for me, and in fact, we're neighbors. Maybe 5-6 blocks away, something like that.
Not even.
Yeah.
One country block.
One country block away.
Yeah.
So I had talked to Dan. I said, we were talking about different guests we want to have on from time to time, and I had brought Brad's name up. And Brad is a big woods hunter, likes to hunt a lot of public land, big DIY guy. And so that's kind of the subject tonight is DIY and big woods hunting. So we're going to get into some of those types of things here tonight. But before we really dive too deep, if for those of you that don't know Brad, let's get to know Brad here a little bit.
Oh.
So, Brad, your favorite brand of... No, just kidding. Your favorite broadhead. No, just kidding.
God,
no, we're not going to get controversial.
No.
How did you get your start in the outdoors? Let's kind of just start there.
I grew up in a family that was outdoors all the time, too, and so I was blessed to have that and a lot of good hunters in my family that, I just grew up being around. So that's huge, and which is why it's awesome to get kids out all the time, and I always try to do that. But
right.
So I started when I was young, hunting license at 12 years old. I didn't really start bow hunting hard till I was probably 17 or 18. And then once I started doing that, then it was all over,
Yeah, it was on from there.
Yep. And then kind of had a thing for cameras and stuff, even back, right 2002, started to film stuff for fun and.
Yeah, and that's actually
got into that, and it's super addictive, if you do it, and so
right. That was actually something I was going to say too. I mean, you're not you're not locked into certain things. You're very well-rounded individual. We'll say that. You are very into music and that. You play guitar. You've been in some bands and things like that. You're also really big into photography, videography, and filming your own hunts. And I think we'll kind of touch on that a little bit too, and maybe talk about maybe some of the struggles that that brings up.
That a lot of struggles, and you learn from them,
Yeah. But so you got into your teenage years, and you really kind of got into it, and then you were involved with.
I posted a video on YouTube, and back in the day, and then I had a few guys reach out to me when the whitetail pursuit was kind of a thing as a DVDs, and they had it like in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and so I was part of that, and it kind of faded off, and that's when we started up Chase Nation. Sam and I, we just kind of dipped out of whitetail pursuit, started that up, kind of had fun with that for a while, and that's where I am today. And now lately, it just I kind of just decided to do my own thing, and I feel like there's a lot of crap in the, you know, outdoor TV shows, you know, that kind of spread a false narrative on how you got to, you know, spend money on hunts and best gear and all that shit. And I just want to, you know, try to get people out and hunt.
Right.
And I've been saying that hashtag for years and years and years. Just get out and hunt. And
Right.
that's kind of what I'm all about. And that's what I'd like to share with other people too.
So much so now that you have a YouTube channel called Get
just
Out.
started a YouTube channel. It's pretty fresh, and I don't commit that much time to it, especially right now because it's busy working season for me.
Yeah.
And but I do still love doing it, and I'll post stuff when I can, you know.
Yeah, and I will say your photography and your videography is top notch. Your editing skills are
Thanks, appreciate
are
it.
way up there.
I was trying to get better at that, you know. And,
Yeah.
But
Hoping you can teach me a few things.
yeah, absolutely.
So, your type of hunting, I think, really kind of translates into a lot of the stuff that Dan does in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up, you know, watching these guys hunt and old videos and stuff like that. So
Yeah. These old heads like Dan and that, right?
I didn't say old. I just said these guys.
Yeah. So, but you kind of did you cut your teeth in public land hunting?
Yeah. I mean, I pretty much grew up hunting. We started in the Squamigan up by Winter, Wisconsin, and I hunted there, and I loved it ever since I started there. And I started bow hunting there and camping, you know, on the flowage and stuff. And we do that every year religiously with like 6, 7, 8 guys. And as soon as you dip into that kind of woods, man, you really don't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
And I love it. I do hunt obviously other places and stuff, but there's no matter what, like come November, like I'm going up north, man, because it's just.
Well, and you do. So, I mean, as far as the DIY stuff goes a little bit, like you just recently were back in Hawaii again.
Yes,
hunting on, which island were you hunting on?
A couple of them.
Don't want to say that's fair enough. Understandable.
It's not too hard to look into the state land out there and see what's open. It's open year round, and it's pretty relatively cheap, especially if you camp.
Sure.
So I mean, the most expensive part's just flying out there, really.
Right. So
unless you have a rental car that gets damaged, you know, and that'll screw you sometime. But that happened
out there.
So this year we went after some Spanish goats. And we were trying to shoot a pig or two. We never got a pig, but we got on a lot of goats and then axis deer. So it was my 5th time going out for axis deer, and it's just really something awesome. These deer, they're like whitetails on crack, pretty much. I mean, they spook, like they go like this, they're gone, and they don't stop their foot and maybe look at you for a second, you know.
Real skittish, huh?
Very skittish. You know, there is hunting pressure. The locals do hunt pretty much year round on a lot of these same spots.
And this is your second time, second or third?
Fifth time. Yeah, and my buddy Nick got me into it out there, man, and just every year we can do it a little cheaper and cheaper if you're good at finding those cheap flights, you know, and they're fun animals to hunt. They're the best tasting venison in the world if you Google it.
Yeah.
I think they're either number 1 or number 2. I know fallow deer's up there too.
Sure.
So we fly all the meat home as long as it's frozen. I stuff that shit in like any pocket I can, and I'll check a cooler from Walmart and just duct tape it and write frozen meat on it, and I've never had a problem. Just check it for the 50 pounds. So.
Yeah. So you said your buddy Nick got you involved with that. In the DIY side of things or whatever, you're not just going out there, staying at a resort and taking a taxi out somewhere and that. Like, can you kind of explain a little bit, like, on the DIY side of things? Well, I mean, is it just straight up just camping?
Straight up, yeah. You find a place to camp. There's lots of places you can camp all over Hawaii.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes you got to pay $30 a night to stay there. Like the one we had this year, it had bathroom and a water spigot even. And it got down to 36 degrees the one night on top of the mountain out there.
Wow.
And then obviously it's like 80 and tropical down below, but
sure.
But yeah, just look it up. I mean, it's a very doable DIY hunt other than going to like one of the ranches and paying like $8,000 or whatever it is to shoot one.
Yeah.
There's deer everywhere. I mean, they're trying to eradicate a lot of these animals.
For people that don't know, how did these access deer get there in the first place?
From what I've read, they were gifted by a king to another king and on one of the other smaller islands.
For exchange
like
for a daughter or something.
So they brought them all over and they breed like 3 times a year. There's no like really, you'll go out there, Dan, there'll be a hardhorn buck rutting. There'll be a buck that's just shed, and there'll be a velvet buck. Like you could see him. And the main rut is kind of like spring.
Sure.
But there are like 3 separate cycles out there. It's kind of wild.
All right. So you just got back from that and you were successful on a.
Yep. I got an axis deer and a goat.
And
my uncle got a deer and a couple goats. So it was, for a few days we were there, we did pretty well.
So when's the barbecue?
We can have that. We can set it up. 100%. And the Mouflon rams, that's right. We got, my uncle got a Mouflon ram, and that meat is really good.
Yeah.
Too, yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into, some of the bucks you've killed here in the Midwest and that. I mean, I know you don't exclusively hunt Wisconsin. That's where you're out of and that. I know you travel to Minnesota, North Dakota, lots of other states and that.
Recently I've been trying to do like at least 4 or 5 in a season, and it's been doing all right. I mean,
yeah.
I really love checking out new spots.
Sure.
And it's just something about it, like that I've never been to the spot. I like to check it out, and all of a sudden you find a spot that you probably will never share either with anyone. You know what I mean?
Are you the kind of guy that in your home state you want to get it done first before you travel, or you like, I always have the home state, I can hunt late season?
I like hunting late season a lot.
I know you do.
I really love hunting late season. I like getting them, find their food, and I really love hunting in the snow.
Sure. So you're all about doing some of the traveling and that, getting that out of the way, and keeping home state as home base is.
Yeah, I definitely like to get out opening weekend and, get that first doe kill under your belt, right? And get some fresh meat in the freezer.
Dan, what do you think about that? He should be out there going for a buck, right?
Yeah, I'm bucks all the time, yeah. I like shooting does, but what I do is that for my does is when when I'm hunting and it's the end of the night and the buck ain't coming in and it's about ready to go.
Yeah.
Then I'll take my doe. I just I can't waste a day. It's just like you only get so many opportunities per how many times you hunt. And
I agree 100%. I mean, in my mind, I'm always hunting for a buck too, but it's really hard opening weekend, when you see that doe and you're like,
right.
I could use some meat.
I like shooting deer too. I like putting a lot down, and I haven't been doing that for years, and I kind of miss it. I used to shoot probably 5-6 does a year.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got out of it when they did the CWD killings. I did the opposite. I started killing a lot less deer because I didn't want to kill so many deer because of how many everybody else was.
Sure.
And I just got used to it, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I there was one year in particular that I specifically, and I think it was partly for me because I didn't have a target buck on camera. Instead, I was out for opening weekend. I was actually on a fishing trip.
Oh boy,
on the flowage. And that was the first time I had ever missed hunting an opening weekend in like 20 years of archery season. It just was one of those things where that kind of aligned in that. So we came back on Monday. By Friday morning, I was already back out in the woods already, though. And my goal, honestly, was, if a buck comes and it's, a shooter in my eyes, I would obviously take it. But I'm like, my thought process is like, I'm going to take a doe or two here today and just knock that off. So I'm never tempted, at like shooting a doe, even at last, close to last light.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden there's still maybe 5 minutes there where a buck could come in. I'm like, I'm just going to get it. I'm going to get the freezer meat taken care of. And then it's bucks here. And then I'll go to Ohio and it'll be bucks there. I'm like, I'm just going to get that done. And it was one of those situations where I hunted early season in the morning and took two does within 45 minutes of each other. And I was like, all right,
Yeah.
fill up the back of the truck, fill the freezer. It's bucks from here on out. But I definitely get where you're coming from, Dan. And it's something we talked about before too. Like every hunt should be a buck hunt first and foremost. And
I'm not saying it should be. I'm just saying that's what it is for me.
yeah.
What anybody else wants to do is fine. Yeah. I remember one hunt I was thinking about when you were talking, where I was hunting with my son James and another guy, and I put James across this field from me, where these two bedding points came together on a recently logged area. And I went across the field, and I felt like he was in a better spot kind of thing. And I was just going to shoot a doe or something. And I went and set up on this water hole. And I should have concentrated on bucks, and I didn't. But I actually shot 3 does that day. On a hunt where I just let loose and shot 3 does. Nice. And when I got out and got back, and that was before cell phones, you know what I mean? James was a kid. And when I got back and met up with him, he had 2 big bucks come in, and he videotaped them, and he passed the biggest buck he would have ever shot because the other buck coming from the other point was in the 190s. And it headed straight across the field towards me, and it would have been right about the time I was shooting those does.
Oh, yeah.
That was a hard lesson.
Yep. I mean, I've definitely done that before, too. Like, I probably shouldn't have shot that doe because you know what's coming behind it, right?
Right.
It's funny that you should say that because honestly, that day I shot both those does that morning over a water hole as well. You know, it was just like, it was early season. It was, 6 days after the opener, and it was super warm out and that. And I'm like, I'm going to sit over one of my water holes and that and just see what comes in the morning. Otherwise, normally I don't hunt mornings that time of year. But, the opportunity came and shot one. She took off and crashed about 30 yards away. Like 45 minutes later, a couple more came in and just coming to get a drink of water.
It's only like 100 days away or something now today.
I know.
I think it's like 100 days until
it's starting to,
Wisconsin
it's
opener.
Starting, right. It's starting to feel like
start the countdown.
Right. Once you hit June, I think it's like it's okay to start counting down, isn't it? Maybe sooner. Am I wrong?
I'm already getting itchy.
Yeah.
Who isn't?
Right.
I mean, months,
Exactly. I mean, turkey's over. We got that out of our system. It's like, okay.
Yeah, well, Brad's not itching because he just came back from Hawaii.
Well, you didn't. If you watch the video I just posted, you'll know why I'm a little itchier because I missed a big buck and.
First night, right?
First night hunting axis deer. Yeah, it was like almost too perfect, But it was I shot just under them and. They're so it was kind of a farther. It was 42-yard shot, which is far, but like I said, I don't typically try to get much closer to these things because they're so hard to get close to.
I mean, is movement even more of a thing with them? I mean, do they have like bigger eyes, or do they have better eyesight,
or I would guess it's probably the same eyesight. It's just they just seem like they're constantly just like
on edge, like tweakers,
like a cat on catnip
all year too.
You're right. That's 100% true.
That's a really good point. Honestly, if they're being hunted all year round, like you said,
there's actually a bounty on their tail.
Sure,
you can get cash for bringing tails in.
Wow.
And I didn't take part of that, but
right. What do you? I mean,
you even have to tag them then?
So no, what you do, there's basically sign-ins. Like some of these public places, you have to write down your number, your license plate, and then it'll say deer, and then it'll say buck, doe, and then it'll say like goats, male, female, and then if you, at the end of the night you have to check out and mark what you got. So you could, and potentially in some of these spots, you could kill unlimited animals.
Wow.
So it's kind of wild, but they need it. They need hunters, and especially on the goats and the pigs.
Is there a lot of? I mean, I don't want to spend too much time. Well, don't worry, guys. We'll get to the whitetails here for sure. But just out of curiosity, and I think you and I maybe have talked about this, but do the locals? Is there a fair amount or a good amount of local hunters, or is it a lot of people coming there?
I think there's a lot of the locals that I've met. They're diehard hunters.
Yeah.
Like we've met some awesome people out there. One guy I walked in his house, he had huge whitetail mounts and muleys. He goes out, Midwest.
So he comes here to the States.
He comes Midwest every year and
the
hunts,
mainland.
and it's fun to meet people like that all the way over there. And
Nice.
They're such amazing people.
Yeah.
Like they won't even know you, and they'll let you sleep in their backyard, which happened this year to me. For literally this, never even met this family, and they said you can stay in our yard, and they set up a little gazebo and a grill, and we tented there for a few nights.
We were talking about DIY stuff, and now you're talking about staying under a gazebo in Hawaii.
I mean,
did they let you use their hot tub too?
No,
the great thing about these hunts is that you run into the greatest people. People are so different everywhere you go,
100%.
and you run into things like that. I've had that too.
Yep.
We do have a question, Brad, about the Hawaii hunt. How big are these goats that you guys were hunting?
Probably about 80, 90 pounds.
Okay.
Got some billies. I don't even know. You could check if I posted a picture of one, just the head and the meat, but I'll post a picture of my goat I got. But there are some of the billies, they get they curl up pretty good.
They curl up, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the nannies and that or whatever, they're pretty tiny, but the billies get decently sized. I mean, I felt like I had 80 pounds on my back walking up the mountain with it, but it was probably more like 30.
We got a question here. Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, it's just Dervish says he's from India, where native for the axis deer, and unfortunately they're banned in India, and he hopes to hunt it one day someplace else.
Man, go to Hawaii, dude. I mean, you can do it. You just buy your non-resident Hawaii hunting license online.
That's crazy.
Got to give them your, probably different from a different country. I don't know if you have a hunter's certificate, hunter safety certificate. I'm sure they do everywhere.
Dervish is from Canada. He came to my workshop last year, so I met Dervish, the person who asked the question.
Oh, cool.
And he's like a born hunter, and he grew up in India where you can't hunt. So he moved to Canada to be a hunter and started hunting in Canada. Workshop. That guy is going to really be a killer.
Sweet.
That's awesome. That is really cool. Good on you, Dervish. That's crazy.
He's a very interesting person to meet.
Cool.
Very cool. All right, you guys ready to talk some whitetail? Maybe a little bit of mule deer
Every day of the week. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your experience and what how your life transitioned from a kid and then getting into hunting the big woods and what you learned about hunting in the big woods. I mean, because I think there's so much. I mean, there's lots of different styles, different terrains and that people hunt. Mm-hmm. Hunting the big woods of North Wisconsin, and as well as other states, Minnesota, the UP. I mean, there's a lot of places like that. How does that differ for you, and what did you learn about that compared to hunting like, down here where we are in Southeast Wisconsin, where it's crop fields?
Well, I think you learn much. You learn how to hunt, in a whole different level. I think if you get into the big woods, for one, because you really got to hunt. You got to find where the deer are eating, find where they're bedding. And because the Northwoods is big, right? And that's why people complain all the time about, there's no deer. Well, there are a lot of deer still in the Northwoods. You just, you got to find the pockets of where they are.
Right. And what are those pockets? I mean, what specific? Like you said, you just mentioned, the food and the bedding and that. In some of these areas, as we know, Dan is really big into the bedding areas. Mm-hmm. And that, how does that translate for you there up in the big woods in the in terms of looking for those?
Looking for that, I try to find the transition, I guess, between them, and
does it change from season to season too? Like from early season to late season?
Oh,
in
yeah,
your opinion?
Yeah, I think definitely. And then especially when they start, trying to get more, ruddy, you could say, and stuff. And, they always move more then and start, hitting scrape lines a lot more and stuff like that. But actually in the Northwoods, I do pay attention to scrapes a lot up there, because I feel like those bucks in that area. They make a pretty big circle too, and that's a lot of ground they have to cover. So it's like if you can figure out, you know, where they're going in that circle, I think they're a little bit easier to kill.
Sure.
Per se.
I think you know, most of the people I talk to that complain about the Northwoods tell me that there's no bucks or whatever, no decent ones to hunt. I think a lot of those people lock into one little area, and when that area goes south, maybe wolves come in, maybe somebody shoots the big bucks and there's none for a year or whatever. They just keep hunting that spot, and then they think the spot sucks, and eventually maybe they move south.
You know, you're spot on. You're spot on with that. And I've met guys up there that, you know, they hunt the same tree. They love hunting up north and going, but you know, they're hunting the same 100-acre spot where you could really move around. And you, like you said, the wolves do move around up there, and they might not kill the deer, but they'll push them off of that piece real fast.
Yeah.
So, and I actually had one of my favorite places. The wolves did move in, and I mean, it was shot. I mean, there was nothing for deer sign. And I'm like, well, I guess it's time to move, you know, and to this other 70,000 acre area.
Right. So are you doing a lot of up in the national forest too?
Yep. Yeah. Biskobing. And I do hunt some state land up there too, but.
And you're always on the move.
Kind of, unless I do, you know, I do try to hang some cameras up there and stuff, but it's hard. You know, you don't get it, you know, as much as you'd like you would around here for intel. As long as I get it at least over the course of a few months, you know, a couple bigger bucks, I'll try to hunt that area a little heavier. So I got one up there from last year that made it that I'm really looking forward to finding this year.
Sure. Luke, if you could just pull up our producer, Luke, here is who I'm talking to. If you guys, we didn't introduce him, but that's the guy that was talking back there before. Bring up Buck One there.
Buck One.
This was a Northwoods?
Oh yeah, that's Bayfield County.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about this, the little story about this, and like what the tactics were that you used, and
so I dropped a camera the earlier in the day on a scrape, fresh scrape.
What month was this?
This was November.
Okay.
First week in November. And I couldn't believe it. I actually was back at the camp, and my phone's going off. I'm like, oh, you know, wind or something. And I see this guy. We had a picture of him over a mile and a half away earlier in the year on one of my other buddies' cameras.
Okay, wow.
I'm like, holy crap, he's in there. I'm like, I just dropped everything, snuck in and around, hung stand in a tree, and these deer kind of go up on top of these oak ridges in there, and they like to bed up on top usually during the day. I don't know if it's just because in this particular spot they can see, and then they can smell what's coming up from the bottom behind them.
Right.
So, and the wind was perfect, and it came, and I was able to sneak in, and these does funneled down, and the one was acting like super goofy, right? And I'm like, man, I mean, I could shoot a nice doe right now, you know, but let him go. And
the temptation.
And sure enough, this buck's coming through, and I got the video. You could watch on that one if you wanted, but I got
go back to the other one, Luke.
Got a lucky shot. He stopped for me chasing the doe about 20, 25 yards in front of the stand, and that was it.
Game over.
So
what have you noticed in terms of difference? Because you do hunt down here too, you know, in southeast Wisconsin as well as other states, obviously. What is one of the big things that you find different in terms of buck behavior, or maybe even, you know, your tactics for, you know, from southeast Wisconsin or the southern part of the state towards the north?
I feel like actually the deer are more natural up there. You know, I feel like they do move a little bit more during the day, as well as, you know, as how they're a little more just tied into their nocturnal madness of pressure down here.
Yeah.
If you can get into deer that aren't pressured heavy, I mean, you're going to find them in their more natural state of calmness.
Do you find a good amount of sign from other hunters up there, from where in the areas that you're doing, or are you getting really kind of off the grid a little bit?
Depends on a couple of the spots, but you know, we'll always find a random ladder stand and that like 100 yards off the road or something.
Sure.
Like that. But I've never really had other than gun season up there, I don't really run into any other hunters.
Yeah. Dan, I know you've done both. You've hunted the Northwoods plenty of times. Everybody thinks you're the big swamp marsh guy. And you are, but you've also spent plenty of time doing that. What would you agree with that assessment in your experience, or what are your thoughts?
For me, I kind of am shaking my head and agreeing with most of what he's saying. For me, the Northwoods meant really seeking out and finding a buck to hunt, because if you just hunt spots like on a map, it's a long season. But if you find a buck to hunt that's working an area, at least you've got something in the area to kill.
Sure.
And like people sticking to the sections and sticking to certain areas and rotating through certain stands year after year, that works for a while, but don't work forever. But I have to agree. I mean, we'd get on bucks in the Northwoods at noon.
Yeah, 9 to 2.
Dawn and dusk. I mean, you don't see nothing midday.
Yep.
Not even rut. You just not.
Yeah, we'll joke about that at camp with my buddies too. Like, we're back at camp having breakfast at 9. I'm like, man, this is a bad idea because it's the 9 to 2 up here. Right. Can be a magic time.
I know. I agree wholeheartedly. Even on some of my leases, like typically, depending upon the spots that you hunt and how far you are away from doe bedding and food sources and that. I hate getting out of the stand, just to go back and eat breakfast or something, because I'm like, this is the time. I typically won't start seeing deer movement until like 9 o'clock or after. Like for me, it's like that 9 to noon window and that in some of the areas that I hunt. But
like
the trouble with that sometimes though is if you don't know the area real well. Like a person like myself travels to the north a lot, and like you said earlier, I like to hit new spots. I like to move around a lot. I've been a lot up in that Bayfield area that you were talking about earlier, and there's got to be some scouting time.
Yeah, 100%.
You can't all the time. When do you ever look to find where the deer are? You got to locate a deer to hunt. You got to locate spots to hunt and stuff. So there has to be some on foot time, and that's what kills me. You want that tree time, but if you hunt midday, you end up with an hour to scout or something. And you really got to either get there and dedicate a couple hours or days to scouting, or you have to have some time during each day to scout, or at least until you find a good spot.
Yep, that's true. And like you said, the guys that kind of just get comfortable hunting the same spots, especially up there, you could drive down logging roads for days and just get out and explore. And that's the part that I love the most too, is just really the exploring, man. Like
how much time are you spending scouting versus hunting? Or is it, it's all kind of, a lot of it goes hand in hand, right?
Because I've spent most of my life in a lot of these areas, I've spent so much time over the years up there. Like I do kind of have just mental notes in my head on like spots where I have been, and I'll check back at, or I'll just literally, sometimes I'll just pull up, Onyx and just be like, man, and zoom in and look at, ridges and stuff. Like, I'm just going to check this spot today, and not even with a stand on my back, and just walk in there. And if it's hot, dude, you're dropping a pin,
Right. Do you ever do that? Also carrying your bow too, and just be like, I
got my bow in my hand.
Okay. So, if it looks good, I might just hunt from the ground right here.
Right. Exactly. So, yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Let's pull up another buck here. I don't know. Luke just picked maybe buck 3.
Oh, there's a question about Lyme's disease. I don't know, man. I might. I've had so many damn deer ticks in
pull up
bad places.
Pull that up once, Luke. Daniel Schwartz says, have you ever had Lyme?
Not that I know of. I've had so many ticks though and I feel like I'm getting joint pain, but I think that's just getting older. I might have been lucky enough to escape Lyme's for now, but I have been the past few years since I had a really bad bite.
Yeah.
I've been very proactive with spraying my clothes
Me too.
And at least in this time of year, like in the fall, I don't care as much about it. But
Yeah, I've had a couple bullseye bites in that, and got put on antibiotics right
Me
away
too.
because what's
have
that?
you had
Dan?
limes? Yeah.
I had the bullseye. That
Yeah.
is an obvious the bite in the middle, the bullseye, and you can tell because it's got like an outer rim that sticks up. It's
Yeah.
not just a bruise; it's a different kind of mark than a bruise or something.
Right.
And my wife has Lyme's disease.
Yeah, it's no joke. It is absolutely no
Yeah, my
joke
wife is
at
all
all.
screwed up. She's really screwed up from it. She's got allergies to almost everything. She can hardly eat anything. Basically,
then-
she can eat corn and meat. So we eat tacos just about every day.
Well, my son wants to come live with you. What's up? Tell everybody. No, it's funny that you should bring that up because actually my my brother-in-law has that alpha gall disease, and that it's from the Lone Star tick.
Oh, that's that meat one. Isn't it?
Yeah, he can't eat any. So every year,
I
so
have nightmares about that.
him and my sister-in-law are not hunters in that, but they loved venison, and they would ask every year, like, "Would you mind shooting us a deer and that?" And I'm like, not at all. I got even if it's just late, comes late season, or whatever. Yeah, I'll shoot you a doe and that, and you can come get it. I'll get it processed for you, or I'll cut it up for you, whatever the case is. But they're really big into hiking, and they travel all over the world and stuff. And he got a tick bite from a Lone Star tick and has this alpha gall. Can't eat any sort of red meat at all.
Dude.
Like, it's basically, I mean, he can still eat chicken and pork and
Could you imagine
that. No, and in our world of like, I mean, I know there's guys that hunt that actually don't like the taste of venison. I think it's just because they haven't taken care of the meat properly or they haven't prepared it properly, because I don't understand it. Venison is just the most delicious meat in my mind, and many hunters' minds. But to have that removed from your life, to never even be able to go to and have like a nice,
it just sounds like
porterhouse,
it can't be real. Like, how does that even happen?
yeah, I don't know, but yeah, alpha gall, like that and Lyme's disease. I don't know. I mean, Lyme's disease, I think is far worse. I mean, that can be extremely debilitating, especially if it goes untreated or if early detection in that. But so yeah, all right. Let's get back to another buck here, Luke. Just pull one up here once, and we'll talk about it. Where are we at here?
Nebraska.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not big woods, but
Fell in love with Nebraska muzzleloader season years back, and try to get the tag every
I know
year.
you wanted me to go with you out there last year.
I mean, Nebraska, there's so much land to hunt on,
No, that was Dakota. I'm sorry. My bad.
and there's a lot of deer. I mean, it's I feel like it's kind of a sleeper state, to be honest. I mean, you can drop into spots and get on some deer out there, and it's cool because you can work on your spot and stalk game a lot. So you get to learn and experience a little bit of different hunting, because you're not really. I mean, there are spots you can definitely set up a tree stand if you get on the right spot and the
Sure.
right deer, and you think you can cut them off. But
So tell us a little bit about that, about this buck here. If you want to bring it back up, Luke. Nope, wrong one. Yeah, there you go.
it's just dropped into a piece, and it was I think it was the last day of the hunt too, and a day before I actually missed a buck with the muzzleloader. I had a dry fire or a misfire, and I actually had my buddy that took me out there, who was filming through his spotting scope from like a mile away. You can see me crawling to this buck, and I'm probably like only 50 yards, and he stands up. So I'm like, okay. And I'm laying prone, which is like my perfect. And I pull the trigger real nice, just ready to watch him drop, right? Because it was like a straight on it right into the neck with a muzzleloader. And I pull the trigger and it goes, thump, and the bullet just goes, and like hits the ground 10 feet in front of me.
Like a weak Nerf gun.
So so the last day I ended up getting on him, That was my first buck I ever got in Nebraska.
Yeah. Very cool. All right.
I wanted to, one thing I was going to share with some people, I think I might have just on like a story, but I've been looking at states' previous year's harvest reports for different counties. And to me, I think that's a really good tip to, if you're looking to get out in some new areas and you're like, where should I go? Look at the statistics on what bucks were shot in what zone or county. And if that one's got, 1,100 versus 30, maybe there's bigger bucks in that 30 area, but if you want to get out and at least get some action, look at those stats and be like, well, there's got to be a lot of deer in this area.
And will they give you the private to public?
They don't break it down like that. No.
See, that's the tough part there. If you're going to travel, I know the first time I went to Ohio, and I hunted Southeast Ohio, I got, what's the matter, Luke? Oh, I'm sorry. Our producer, Luke, is giving a thumbs down. That's just because he used to live in Southeast Ohio. In fact, I hunted not far away from there, from where you lived. But what I was doing is I was getting on pages.
Local
in groups,
pages, kind of,
right?
Yeah.
In that, and I was getting my information that way, and I would just ask questions and kind of played myself off as a local to an extent once in a while, and other times maybe not. Maybe tugging on the heartstrings of people and be like, really, if anybody can kind of give me any sort of information, and I find that to be extremely helpful as well. Like when you find these groups and that, and you gather intel that way.
And like Dan said earlier, how you go on these trips and you meet people, and like you can literally go out there, start talking to people at a breakfast diner, and there's going to be a group of guys in there that are going to want to talk to you about, we got some bucks over here,
right?
Because you just got to get out there and do it. Like you're going to find deer, you're going to have a good time, and that's what it's about, really.
In fact, Dan, so I I was on a 9-day hunt down there, and I think it was day 2. Spent a lot of time scouting with the bow and learning the terrain. You get down to Southeast Ohio, and you get on the edge of Appalachia, and that. I mean, it is no joke. Those hills down there. I know we think we got like big hills in the Kettle Moraine, and those are like ant hills. I am telling you, it was some pretty awesome terrain down there, and just beautiful, to be honest. But we ran into another hunter walking down this gravel road one day, guy a little bit younger at the time, and he's like, I just shot a nice 10-pointer in that, and kind of just hanging out, waiting, to go look for it. And my buddy Adam and I'm like, do you want some help? He's like, I'd appreciate the help for sure. So we went and we helped the guy track down his deer and stuff. Still friends with the guy to this day, and that on social media, and that like he likes when it's my kid's birthday and it's his kid.
That's cool. Man.
Just a really cool guy, and he actually said like, look, I got some spots. Next time you come down, I have some spots that you can hunt, both private or public, and that I can put you on.
And I love hearing stories like that about hunting, because that's what it's all about.
It is.
And it's like, all the bullshit on social media. It's like that. Just you can't take it in.
100%.
Because as hunters, we share those stories. We meet friends, and who knows, it might land you on a big buck someday somewhere.
Exactly. You never know.
I got a good story I got to put in here.
Yeah.
Talking about meeting people. I was hunting in Iowa in Zone 4, and I met this guy knocking on doors, this guy named Fred, who was a caretaker of a big farm, and he let me hunt the farm. And he said I could hunt the whole thing, and it went way back. It was huge. It was like hundreds of acres. And there was a back access where you come in from the backside up this farm access road. And I go back there, and the guy let more than just us hunt. So there's other people who had permission there. And, you try to keep quiet with other guys so that they don't figure out what you're doing. Yeah. So we go up on this hill, and we're glassing down into this bottom in the back of the property where there's this river bottom, and we're looking at, trying to make out if there's like, this is pre-onyx and stuff, if there's oxbows, if there's little ridges, how the terrain's work and how we should go at it. And in pulls a truck, and we're like, oh yeah, keep quiet, So this guy gets out of his truck, and he kind of wanders over, looks at us, looks at where we were looking, and he's just standing there next to us. It's kind of weird. And then he says, you guys planning on hunting down there? And I says, yeah, I want to hunt that end. He's going to hunt that end, and kind of claim the area before he could say anything, because we were there first, right? So he says, oh, that's fine. He goes, I'll just find someplace else to hunt. He goes, if I were you, I'd hunt over there. That's a really good area there. He goes, when I bought the farm, and I said, you bought the farm? Isn't this Fred's farm? He goes, no, that's my property. And I was like, and you're just going to let us hunt down there? I thought this was Fred's. He goes, no, that's my property. But go ahead. You were here first. You want to go down there? Go ahead. And I'm feeling like an idiot. You know what I mean? He says, by the way, if you don't find what you're looking for and you're looking for a good buck, come see me. And he opens up his wallet and he gets out a card and he hands it to me. He says, stop at my office and see me. And he was like, forget what he did, but he was some town businessman. And so we hunted a couple of days, and I'm like, maybe we should just go check out that guy. I mean, he was pretty generous. If he says he knows some spot where there's big bucks,
Right.
So I mosey down there, we walk in, and it's like, hey, you said if we were looking for any big bucks to let you know. And he goes, yeah, I got a spot for you. And he tells me how to get to this spot. He goes, you go in this road. He gives me like the street number. And he goes, there's going to be a gate. Go over and open the gate and go through, close it again because there's cattle. Follow the road till it takes a Y, take a left. And he has me do this runabout thing where I get back about a half mile. And he goes, and you get to this fence. He goes, you don't want to go through that gate because the deer will see you. He goes, then there's a little triangular property down there that is just loaded with big bucks. Give that a try. So we go over there and we get there. We go all the way back there, find this spot. We walk in there and all these deer scatter. I mean, and big ones. And we're like, holy crap, this guy put us on us. Why didn't he hunt here, And we're going to run down and really quick set up stands because we kicked all the deer out of there and come back in the morning. And when we get back up to the truck and we're going to get the stands out, a tractor comes by and it turns towards us, comes over, and the guy says, what the hell are you doing on my property? And I says, well, and I give the guy's name, told us we could hunt here. And he goes, this is my property. You can't hunt here. And he goes, that guy had a problem with me years ago, and this is his payback. He's not allowed to.
Get out of here, man. That's classic.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, you gotta be
And
kidding.
you know what? That's why you guys did it before mapping, man. And you were killers before mapping. Honestly, like that's legit. You guys are legend hunters from doing what I try to do with Onyx and all this fancy mapping. And dude, without that, it's a lot harder, man.
Oh, the amount of stories I can tell just from hunting up in Black River Falls on public land for many years. People trying to claim land that isn't theirs, and because it's adjacent to this or adjacent to that. I could talk for a long time about it. It's crazy though. But yeah, that's a great story. Elizabeth Williams donates $10. She says 144 people watching. Why don't you hit that like button?
Yeah,
You got that right, Elizabeth. Come on, guys, hit that like button.
Oh man, what a story though to send people out on someone's property. I'm gonna have to remember that when I'm like an old guy and I'm mad at somebody.
I think the guy was playing me on purpose because he was maybe upset that we were going to hunt his property. Even though he just acted that way, and that was his way of like he knows you're going to take the bait. Maybe.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's hilarious.
Jeez. All right, Luke, you want to pull up another buck? Let's talk. What do we got?
Well, they
here?
can pull that one. You can watch that. There we go. You can watch that one on the Chase Nation episode.
That's on a Chase Nation episode?
Yeah.
Wait, this one or?
No, the other one.
Go back to going through the marsh there.
Yep. So that
See,
was,
I brought this one up because I'm like, Dan will like this picture here.
that was yeah. Oh yeah, dude. That's North Dakota, and this was like I said, man, I sometimes I fall asleep at night looking on Onyx. My phone falls on my face, you know. But there was a spot I found online, and I just dropped in there, and it was like a kayak paddle through like some pretty nasty flowage, drainage, you know, and got up in there. And as soon as I stepped off the kayak, Dan, no kidding, like 20 yards in, I jump up. I almost step on like a fork. I'm like, okay, this is better than I thought already, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's dry cattails in there, so they like to bed in that dry cats, you know. And then they funnel up to like, you know, there was some soybean fields up top on private, but this little sliver of public you couldn't get to unless you
This
dropped.
is where they were running.
Unless you dropped in, there's no way to access it unless you dropped in, you know, and paddled.
Sure.
And I got up there. I hung a stand. I didn't even have a stand. I climbed a tree and sat on a branch. And it wasn't like 2 hours later, I started seeing deer funnel up, and the trail that was leading up to like, you know, the top where the soybean field was, he was coming in at like 4:30, coming in hot to go up and feed, you know, and stuck them, and the rest was history. So.
How far did
you see a lot of these? You see a lot of these hunts, you know, where you find something like that. You find that little secret way in, and you find some hidden gem, you know, and I've found a lot of those myself. We call them overlooked spots, right? But I think people don't really realize how many of those spots you find. You get in and you do all this work, and they're dead end ones. That
definitely happens a lot. Yeah,
a lot. Yeah, and you know, but you also find the gems, you know.
Yep.
But the way that's portrayed, everybody just shows the kill shows, so you think all those spots are going to be hot like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you gotta, maybe it's like, that's why I like longer. I forgot what podcast I was listening to, but they were talking about longer, more natural videos. You know how it's came down to like these quick 60-second hunts, and you know, people get glorification on it, maybe seeing that, but I think it's going to go back to maybe people wanting to see a whole story, and which includes not killing deer every time, because that's not real life, you know.
Because, you know, people want to know the process. You know, what happens is when you just watch kill shows, is you think that there's something wrong with you. You know, you're for the average guy or the guy starting, they're like, how come I'm not killing deer and these guys are killing deer every hunt? And and those guys just starting out, they got jobs, they got wives, they got kids, and they're hunting 10 times a year, not really realizing guys like me and you are hunting 50 to 80 times a year. And you know, you're only showing them if you're only showing them the kills, they think they're inadequate.
Yep. Yeah. And you know, on my YouTube page, I think I even kind of had a little rant on my description when I opened it, because I've just been so the kind of like how all these shows have just gone to crap. I mean, there are still great shows, right? But it's just ad after ad after ad of just crap you don't need.
Right. Yeah, there's always this really big push for the products in that. Well, because that's what pays the bills.
And they're hunting big farms that they literally put, you know, these guys have money, so they're putting all this money in these farms and they're killing these bucks. Well, you don't have to, that's not how you have to do it. You can, and you can love it that way too, but that's not how it is for the average guy.
Right. Right. And I think that's an important thing to take in consideration when you're contemplating your own lifestyle of hunting, right? And what you feel is what's important to you and what your expectations are is, do you have the kind of money? Do you have the property? Do you have the money to spend on a lease and put big food plots and all those kinds of things in? I mean, I've got leases right now that could be gone tomorrow. Like, it's that close. Like, I mean, especially with the age of the landowner and things like that, those things can be gone in an instant. That's why I still hunt public land every single year, because if I did all my focus on private land, because I can't afford to go and buy a big piece,
right?
And that, you know, leasing is expensive enough as it is. So I think everything is about perspective and putting things in perspective and what's important to you. You got the money, you want to go ahead and become a farmer, hunter. Hey, great. That I got no problems with that. I even enjoy watching some of those shows and some of those episodes just because I like to see big deer getting killed and that.
Yeah.
And the production value of the shows it's entertainment. I'd much rather watch that than watch the Kardashians or some other crap. You know what I mean?
I think if I could, anyone that was if I was to talk to someone trying to get in hunting, but they're just used to watching TV, I'd just be like, if I could tell them something, be like, don't think you have to be like them. Just get out and hunt and find an adventure and just go. Don't be afraid of it and just go out there and do your thing.
Right. Just be yourself and enjoy being out there, because that's really what it's all about. I mean, Dan, you've said it how many times in that, just in the last several episodes, nobody remembers the last buck you killed, right?
Nobody cares about what I, or Brad has shot. I mean, in the big picture, if you've got a lot of bucks and you've got a lot of notoriety, they see that. They don't see what you shoot year to year. And especially somebody starting out, it really doesn't matter what you shoot. If you don't shoot a buck, do shoot a buck, doesn't matter. You got to stop caring what everybody else thinks and just go out and enjoy it. Enjoy 100%, the process,
man.
And it's not apples to apples. I mean, if you hunt in New York and you're shooting 130-inch bucks, you're doing really good. Don't compare yourself to somebody that lives in Iowa.
Right?
Exactly.
The way it is. If you're doing good in your neighborhood, in your backyard, you're killing as big a bucks as anybody around you, you're doing pretty good. And you don't even have to do that. I mean, you just go out and enjoy it. I mean, a lot of guys who are very successful, if you're trying to mimic them and stuff, a lot of those people are not good humans. That's why they're good deer hunters, because they're not good to their wives. They're not good to their jobs, or,
their
kids.
Upset. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And good or bad, it doesn't really matter. What matters is inside of you. Because, at the end of the day, it's just hunting.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've jeopardized in years past. I've jeopardized other things in my life. I've always had an extremely understanding wife, to the point of some of my friends would be like, she's a damn saint. But now that I have a kid, that's 7 years old, it's you got to kind of curtail things back a little bit.
Yeah.
At least for me, that's my perspective. Like, right. I do this, there's a lot of things I do, but my time now, like where I would just go and hunt as often as I could. And I probably should hunt even more than I am right now, because I think it's, in terms of, peace in my own heart and in my own mind, and that like nature's where it's at. Like, the humdrum of everyday life and the responsibilities of everyday life, it is just really good to get out there and hunt.
Yep.
It's almost like the name of your YouTube channel.
Get out and hunt. This guy, he wants to hear more about big woods. So,
all right.
If we got another story about the big woods, we can talk about.
Let's hear it. What do you got?
You want like a funny story, or maybe a story about deer movement, or?
Yeah, what specifically do you want to know from Brad about his hunting in the big woods?
Something that I've taken note on the last few years going up there later in the year is that these deer kind of, if you're hunting a pretty big piece, say it's like 5,000 acres maybe, and there's some logging roads, but it comes down to like a lake where there's a road with maybe like 40 or 50 houses on it. Mm-hmm. They're mostly probably summer times, whatever, but the deer tend to really herd up and come down to where those houses are. And I feel like that's because they're getting fed.
And this is up in the big woods too? Yeah. Just like cabins that are up there.
They're finding bird feeders come late in the year when there's heavy, deep snow.
Sure.
They're huddling up tighter to like homes.
Yeah. It ain't just the food. There'll be different plants in those yards. There'll be different things going on. It's a different kind of transition, different kinds of plant life, different kinds of thickness than the whole rest of the woods.
And I'm thinking it gives them safety too from predators. I feel like, which I never get a wolf picture up there close to where we have this cabin, because I don't think they like coming that close to that road where there's more traffic and stuff. And I feel like the deer might have learned that they're a little bit safer come winter, coming up and bedding closer to the homes,
Sure,
that's 100% a great point. And the last time I hunted Northwoods, actually when I was up in the UP with my buddy, um, it almost pissed me off that I had to hunt by houses because that's where all the deer were. You know, it really was. But we were hunting late season, and I think a lot of that was feeders. But it was
Yep.
more than just the feeders. I mean, the deer migrated there, and that's where you had to hunt. And I really wanted to, go way out into the wilderness more, but you had to go where the deer were.
To be honest, I've actually hunted some spots in that where I've seen some of the best big buck sign in that. In fact, Mike took from the Midwest Racks and Rods Outdoors team, took a buck some years ago on that was really spending a lot of time close to this adjacent property and close to their barn and that, kind of hanging out back there. We could see his sign on our property and that, and where he ended up killing him was within 100 yards of that barn, maybe 150 yards of that barn. That buck liked that area. They even had dogs there, but the dogs had a fenced-in yard. Something about that area, he felt secure, kind of staying back there behind that barn.
Yeah.
I don't know. Different deer, different personalities, and I don't think they're all the same, right? But sometimes, you see that a lot. On another property that I lease, there's a big pole building just used for storing boats that the landowner has, and he's like, he kicks up big bucks all the time when he goes there. They're just hanging out right behind this pole building. There's a lot of cover around there. It's heavily wooded, but I don't know. Your thoughts, Dan?
Well, I feel. I was going to
Go
say
ahead, Brad.
one thing up before I forget about it. And I probably already forgot about it because he was asking about more tactics. But the loggers up there kind of clear cut. Like I feel like maybe 100-acre pieces at a time, and like the third or second year that those clear cuts start growing up, dude. If you try walking through that, it's nothing but deer sign.
It's really hard to get through there, though.
It's incredibly. You can't still hunt through it.
Right.
Because why? That's why the deer are in there, because they're safe. They can hear you coming from, 100 yards away in every direction. And those so a lot of the deer that I've seen the past few years have been next to these clear cuts, and then they come and merge up into the hardwoods to feed.
I've noticed that plenty of times back in the day, back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I used to hunt paper company properties and they clear cut.
Yep.
You'd have these deer in these rows of like down trees and that just bedded down. And it would be deep in some of these little things, and they just kind of tuck them. You could damn near step on them.
Sure.
I'm not talking about big bucks or whatever, but just deer in general.
Yeah.
Does and things like that. Like you'd be trying to navigate through this to get to a spot that you wanted to hunt.
And if you shoot one and they try to run back down in there,
right.
That's where they're safe. They're
exactly.
trying to get into that thick, overgrown clear.
Just bury themselves in this stuff. So
what I find is I find them on that downwind side of that thick stuff, the big bucks, looking at the open woods with their backs to the wind, smelling the thick.
Yep.
And they can just jump into the thick. They can, something's coming through the thick. They can run through the opening, and they got some escape. And the trouble with that is that clear cuts are so popular, and they usually got roads going to them. That's hard to find one isolated enough that doesn't have a lot of hunting traffic.
Sure.
So do you gravitate to water, kind of food sources you're looking for? What has drawn you to certain areas, other than terrain?
I kind of look more towards like a natural funnel point. If I know they're eating on some heavy oaks, on this particular area coming out of this bottom, and actually there's up, especially in Bayfield County in that forest area, the terrain is pretty awesome actually. Like you'll get into some pretty good ridges, potholes with water, and clear cuts, and it's like almost like the perfect mix for those Northwoods deer. But I try to look and kind of see like a funnel. Well, they're not going to clearly come around and walk through this pond, and it comes up high, and there's a pinch here where it's all hardwoods, and then like a pine thicket, like you're going to sit, play the wind right and sit, on this point here where there's a big pond, there's a row of heavy pines, and then hardwoods, and it's kind of like a corner in a transition of 3 different types of terrain.
It's almost as if they have like everything they need right in that area. Right.
Or or it's the one way they're going to travel through it.
But you said you got your pockets of water in that in there as well.
Right.
I mean, deer need to drink. They need water. I mean, every living creature needs that.
Yeah, water is definitely huge, and I know that's become pretty popular in a lot of guys, strategies lately too. You got a water hole in there. Right?
I got multiple, and I've been doing it for over 15 years.
Yeah,
and that, like, I mean, obviously that's not something you can do on public land, but if you can find those spots, on public land, where the deer don't have to travel extensive distances to find that water, I think that's a big key.
It is big to have it.
So, Dan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I always gravitate to water. It's kind of funny.
You do?
Yeah, you believe that?
I can't believe it.
Even in big woods, I like swamps. I mean, swamps and big woods are magnets.
Sure.
Especially what the overlooked ones seem to be the small ones. I know they're the easy ones to hunt, and they'll hold up a buck. You get like a pothole that's a couple acres. That can be a killer spot. But I like the creeks that run through big woods. Those often get overlooked by deer hunters.
Mm-hmm.
Which you wonder why, because they're good for navigating. You can find
exactly.
a way out. But if you look on maps, you can go down till you find where beavers have just destroyed an area, and you get a beaver dam that's been used for years, and they really get thick growth around them. You get a mixture of grasses and trees and stuff, and it's different than the rest of the woods. You get a lot of that areas, and it's a lot of conifer. It's a lot of wood that has no real food sources or anything. But those openings along those creeks have everything they need. They got the cover, they've got the escape, they've got the water, and they've got different plant sources for food. And those creeks just seem to be like magnets for big bucks.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick, Luke, if you could, I've been seeing some comments here from Davey Newman, and that scroll up there a little bit. I think he was asking something about size. He said, well, you can go with that one too. That's fine. All right, there you go. In your opinion, what do you consider big woods? Brad, we'll start with you. What do you consider big woods, like in terms of size?
I would say anything that's, if you're on a county highway, not including maybe, the logging roads, but if you're in a piece that's, over 1,000 acres or something without
a county road going through it, and that,
I feel like that's a pretty big chunk of woods.
It really, I think so.
And but in my mind, if someone says I'm in the Northwoods, to me it might be different than someone else. I think if you're in the Northwoods, you got to be like definitely north of Highway 8. I mean,
in Wisconsin,
or up in the Chiquamagan, Nicolay,
Right. I mean, what is the acreage of our national forest?
Jeez, man. The Chiquamagan's got to be like 150.
Producer Luke's on it. He'll get it to us in just a second here. Dan, what do you consider big woods in your?
My opinion would be different. I look at it as big woods as a terrain. Instead of an area. So if you're looking at big woods as a terrain where deer live and act a certain way, it can be as small as 20 acres, as big as 100,000. But what makes it big woods is what surrounds it too.
Okay.
So I mean, if it's got nearby crop fields and it's got breaks in it all over the place, towns all around it and stuff, it's not as much big woods, right? But if you're in an area that, in my opinion, maybe it's just 100 or 200 acre property, but the bordering properties, even that are private, are all solid forested. To me, that's big woods.
That makes sense.
And to me, it's a terrain. It's not. I get where Brad's coming from, because you say big woods, you should be able to get lost. You should be able to walk for an hour, because that's the image you get in your mind. But it's not the image I get in my mind, because I'm thinking terrain where deer act a certain way and bed a certain way and
sure.
A certain way. So I'm just thinking about it from a different direction.
Yep.
Yeah, I get it. And I mean, I think, all right, Luke, do you got that answer for us?
Yeah. So the Squamish National Forest covers 1.5 million acres.
Holy.
Squamish is 858,000, and the Nicolay side is 661,000.
Yeah, I mean, that is a
So
ton of
Dude, there
land.
is so much
and
awesome
and you
land out there
can,
to hunt.
like, you can get lost.
Well, Dan, I mean, have you ever gone into a spot where there's so much iron in the ground before onyx and phones where your compass would spin it around in circles?
Yeah,
I was
I've had
always scared
problems.
about that when I was a kid.
My dad, when I grew up, I can remember he taught me that you could write a letter. I forget who he did it to. I think it was like I don't know if it's a DNR or what, but we would write a letter asking for maps of properties, and one of them was the Squamish Forest, and we got these big maps and bundles of them for free sent to us. And then my dad would take me and drive me up there and just drop me off at like 12, 13 years old and with a bow. Go at it. You got your compass.
I mean, that's
Meet you
kind
here
of
at
how I
the-
got in. My dad took me up there too. So, and we walked in far, man. And if it was 0 degrees out, we're still going.
Yeah.
Somehow I always found my way back.
Yep. We did have a couple close calls once. My buddy had to shoot his pistol off bow hunting a few times to figure out which way camp was.
To like get a response of like an
he's
SOS kind of a
his phone
thing.
was dying. Oh, we had radios back then. He's like, honk your horn, hurry up, my radio's dying. I'm like, man. He's like, did you honk it? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh shit.
Long ways away.
Long ways away. Yep.
So I've hunted big woods plenty of times, whether it be up like in the Florence area, or even like around the Black River Falls. Like you're in some of these big woods.
Oh, sure.
And you can get turned around so quickly. And if you don't have a compass, you're screwed.
Yeah, man.
And
Or
you
if you have a compass and you
flashlight at
don't know how
night.
to use it.
What's that?
Or if you have a compass and you don't know how to use it, there's a lot of people that believe it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I still have a buddy in there when we hunt. He's still like really confused sometimes about like direction and that. Like I feel so like on one of my leases is 200 acres, right? I'm like, you could drop me off blindfolded in the middle of the night on this piece, and I will find my way out. No moon, nothing. I will find my way. I know this 200 acres, and that's just 200 acres. And we're talking, Luke, again, one more time. How many acres?
1.5 million between the two.
1.5 million acres. Like
There are some big pieces.
you drive up there at night, and you're driving through some of these like smaller highways or like county roads, and you look to your left, you look to the right, like you can't see. It's just completely black on both sides of the road.
Though really though, like in Wisconsin, if you're a grown ass man, you shouldn't have no problem getting out of a woods. No, even if you lose your compass, your phone goes dead, and
I agree.
Way. You're going to hear traffic. You're going to see lights in the distance. I mean, it's just not big enough, this state. I mean, you get to northern Minnesota, you start getting into some bad areas, way up by the border.
Sure.
But really, most of the places you shouldn't have any problem unless you panic.
Yeah, panicking is it. If you start to panic, man, you start walking in circles, you better just lay down
Well,
and fall asleep.
I mean, that's the thing is at night, right? I mean, or you think you're walking in a straight line, and you're always weaving. You're looking for the path of least resistance, and now your direction is changing. I mean, and that's why knowing how to use a compass is
at least
key.
stay on a straight line, right? I mean,
For sure. And now we got phones with GPS and that. What we got a comment there before GPS was that there? Can you pull that up, Luke? Before GPS, you'll get lost in our big Pennsylvania woods for a week. We still don't have service in Lackawanna County. Yeah, I mean Pennsylvania. They got some.
what's ADK? Where's Bill? Where's that?
Adirondack.
Oh, Adirondack has approximately 6 million acres. Damn. I mean, that's crazy.
That's
That
cool.
is Oh, for sure. All right. Enough about like land space and getting lost or whatever. Look, can you pull up one more here? No, did that one. What is this a picture of here? I just pulled this one up. I thought this was cool.
Minnesota.
That was Minnesota?
Yep.
Public land?
Public land, Minnesota. This it's a cool story because
That's a good
that
buck.
was for the shotgun season up there or whatever. But I take my muzzle loader and
What year was this? Was this last year?
this was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
I
Last
think
year
you
had
invited me on this
I had
trip.
a really bad misfire again.
Right. I
last
remember
year
that.
in
Yeah.
Minnesota. But this is a spot, and there's a lot of public in Minnesota too, and it's fun to look at because its terrain is awesome, especially if you're only 20, 30 miles off of the river or so.
Off the
and you're just
Mississippi,
in the
yeah.
bluff country
Right.
still. And I saw a spot, a bunch of cars in the parking lot, like whatever, So I hiked in it the first day. And I'm like, man, this spot really keeps going, but there's like 2 or 3 separate draws that looked pretty bad. So the next morning, I took my bike as far as I could on the logging road, and I dropped down, up, and back down to the next one. And as soon as I got down to the bottom, you could smell the bucks in there. You could smell the rut, and it was that's like November 8th or 9th, so it's like primo rut.
And nobody else was back that far.
Nobody was in there. All I did was started hitting my grunt tube and walking that bottom and stopping every 5 minutes, taking a 10-minute, hit the grunt, walk. And I'm telling you, the bottom was just scrapes. And it was 45 minutes to an hour, and this buck just came screaming at me down the ridge, and I shot him at 30 yards. Wish I would have had my bow.
So you said you're walking in and you're in your grunt calling while you're walking in.
Yep, I'm just walking slow down the bottom, and the wind was great because I was kind of figuring that they were up on this farther away piece, not where I came from. So I just had a really good wind and thermals at the time, so I was just like, well, I'm safe here, so I'm just gonna keep walking and kicking up the ground and hitting the grunt every now and then, and it carried up that.
I'm curious. Yeah, that's awesome. Because that is something I have done before. And that when I'm going through, when it's really tough to get through areas without making noise.
Yep.
And you're trying to sneak into an area.
Try to sound like
and
a
that
deer.
I'll do soft little grunts. And I've gotten so much backlash over the years saying that is a terrible idea. But it's really interesting because I don't think you and I have ever talked about that before. Dan, have you ever heard of that, or you have any
I've
thoughts
heard
on
of it. I don't do that, but I've heard of it quite a bit, and I can see it working.
I mean, you go through cattail marshes.
I called in quite a few deer with the grunt call. The last 2 bucks I killed. The last one was at that 170 in southern Wisconsin. That I heard him grunted back, and he came charging right in, and I killed him. The one before that is the one that came in just grunting his head off. The crazy grunting one. I don't know if you saw that, Brad, but that buck grunted for 3 minutes straight, and he'd go as he's coming.
Get the roar.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Oh, man, it's awesome when you can hear that.
A lot of times I grunt them in, but I've never tried what you're talking about, mainly because it's just not my thing. I'm really about the cat and mouse type game thing, you know. And, just love the trying to kill them in their bedroom thing, not the trickery type thing.
Well,
I don't have nothing against it. It's just I just don't do it. But what I do is I have that grunt call. I mean, if I see one or I hear one come through and they're not going to come to me and it doesn't look like they're coming my way, I'll hit that grunt call and see if that works.
Yep.
But I've had it actually where I've grunted to a deer coming in and they totally spook, and I've had it where they come in and I've had it where they ignore it. So you could be spooking some by doing that, but generally I think that you're probably calling in more than you're not. I think one area I would really think grunting would come in handy would be land borders where the deer are hanging on some private land and you want to bring them over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, time of year too, and and the pressure wise.
Well, for sure, right? I mean, early September.
I was hunting with my muzzleloader then, so I'm not as I'm trying things a little bit different because I got 100. I can shoot 100 yards with a muzzleloader, all day. It's not where I'm trying. I don't have to really necessarily try to get one into 20 or 30,
Right.
So,
Yeah, that would have been pretty hard with a bow.
yeah.
Because one of the things about grunting a deer in or calling a deer in or rattling a deer in is they come in expecting to see a deer. When they don't, they're freaked out.
Yep.
And then as soon as they don't, they're wanting to circle downwind, or younger ones might come right in. But so the gun, at least, or the muzzleloader, at least you can reach out a little bit further.
Right. So per se, if I kind of spooked him as soon as he came down and stopped and noticed there wasn't a deer standing down there, with the muzzleloader, no problem to reach across 80 yards.
Right.
With
You
the
can
bow,
take more of a frontal shot or something than you can with a bow. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had a prime example of that. Like maybe 4 or 5 years ago or whatever. It was a buck I had passed on the year before, and he came in, and now as a 4.5-year-old, and I had grunted. He was coming across a ridge line, and I was hunting low in the evening. Not a real big ridge line or whatever, but the thermals were dropping in that, so I was hunting low, and this buck was coming across, and he was almost at eye level to where I was, and he just hung up. I grunted at him because he was not coming down. Now a younger buck came in. It was a buck we called slickback buck. This buck is now, if he comes around this year, is a 6.5-year-old buck, and he has got this weird rack, and we call him the slickback buck because his brow tines point backwards. He might have like 12 scoreable points on him, but the whole thing fits into the size of a volleyball at tops. Just this abnormal. He's got a short, stumpy neck. I don't even want to say it or whatever, but I was like, if a deer had mental retardation, this buck would be it. He would run around the woods and just go meh, 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 all around, anytime, like especially late October, early November. And he would come into calls all the time. And he's still around to this day. We had multiple sightings with him last year. We're looking at him to be about a 6.5-year-old buck, right?
Put a ribbon around his neck.
I don't know. I mean, Mike, who hunts the same property with me, he's like, I want to take this buck, and I'm like, no, I'm kind of like, let's just let this guy roll because
he's your live decoy.
He's helped me twice kill bucks as a decoy when I've grunted. The buck I was after was about 140-inch whitetail coming across the ridge. Again, I had passed him the year before. He wouldn't come down. I grunted at him, and he just stood there for the longest time, and I didn't want to over grunt. And he's looking kind of my direction or that general vicinity. Well, lo and behold, Slickback is what we call him, comes in. And he stops, and he's milling around like 20, 25 yards right in front of the stand. As soon as he comes out, now this buck's like, oh, that's the buck that was grunting. So now he comes down, ears kind of pinned back, and
nice.
Gave me a 25, I think it was about a 30-yard shot is what it ended up being, whatever, and I got the deal done. The next year, same thing. Way different side of the property. Not even close to the same area.
You definitely need to keep him.
And right. I'm like, Mike, I don't think we should take him out. I'm like, he's kind of a good luck charm. I'm like, he's that live bait. He's that live decoy for us, when we grunt. But I mean, outside of those two experiences, like with grunting, yeah, you can get young bucks to stop.
I think I'm
I get the idea.
Overcaller. I think I tend to overcall a lot.
Yeah.
But sometimes it pays off, I think.
I just think that sometimes it scares the mature bucks if you're in like pressured areas. I would think like if you're in the Northwoods or something, most of those deer probably never heard a person calling. But you get down by me down here, and I hear people calling constantly.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think if I did like the every 30-minute call thing, I would would kill myself. You got to remember the way I set up is usually right on a bedroom exit. And if I'm set up on a bedroom exit and I'm calling to that deer in there, I already think he's going to come my way. I already know how he's bedding and where he's going to come out if he's in there. Why would I want to let him know where I'm at? So that's why I don't do it like that. But I'll hear other guys calling like every 15 minutes, on the dime.
Yeah.
And it's like,
you gotta know when to be invisible too, right? I mean,
right. I'm not saying it's a bad tactic, but you kind of got to be able to keep it at bay sometimes.
When you do walk through like that, I mean, you're not giving like a big, huge grunt. You're just kind of giving the little.
So, on my last trip, because it's like the rut out for the axis deer, and that's all on the ground. You could hang maybe a stand or two somewhere, but so I'd walk and I'd like break a few sticks with the horns on a tree.
Yeah.
Rattle a few times and just keep rubbing trees. And I had that buck come in, I 32 yards or something, and I was already drawn back by the time he turned around the corner and saw me, and he's just gone that fast. But
Dan, have you had any luck with rattling, or is that something you've ever done?
Yeah, I've rattled in quite a few bucks. I've only killed one rattling though.
You've rattled in quite a few. Like,
yeah, but when I was younger,
I don't think you.
Years.
I was gonna say, I don't think it's something that you do on a regular.
Right, I don't. I hardly ever do it anymore. I mean, I'm not against it. It works sometimes. Sometimes it spooks deer.
Yep, like you said, it spooks them too.
But I have rattled deer in. It's kind of cool when it happens. But I mean, some people really love the excitement of a deer coming and charging in the show they put on, and that's just not me. My excitement is that sneaking in and outsmarting them, and
where you're catching them almost more casual.
1,000,000 trees for one buck that you're hunting, kind of thing.
Right.
It's just like everybody's got their thing, and that's my thing,
Right. I mean, I think catching them when they're just casually
passing is still like the most awesome way to hunt too. The cat and mouse game, man. You get good at doing that, and you're the
sure. I mean, you see Larry Weissoon, right? Everybody knows Larry Weissoon with his leather gloves, his deer hide gloves, rattling down in South Texas and stuff. What is it about South Texas that like those deer are just nuts for the rattling, like compared to up here?
There's probably more mature bucks, and there's probably less does. It's probably what it is.
Well,
most of the places that the calling goes over really well, the population is skewed more balanced with bucks and does, and there's more bucks. I mean, if you got one mature buck in the woods, which is a lot of the cases what I'm hunting, and he hears two big bucks fighting, he's going to be leery. If he's the only big buck.
Yeah, he might be like, what the hell?
Right.
Where'd these aliens come from?
A lot of times like when I'm looking at bedding areas, if the bedding area is tore up with rubs, a lot of times that's the 2-year-olds. And where I find the mature bucks, there ain't a rub in sight because it's the only buck on the property. So a lot of times I got to hop around from property to find one that's 5 or 6 years old. You know what I mean? You're not just going to find those on every property. And that's the only buck like that. And you're trying to mimic a buck that age, and fool him into thinking there's another one around.
I think there's a correlation there between bucks and turkeys too, right? Where there's this assumption that the mature buck or the mature turkey in that is the one that's interested in fighting. And that's quite honestly, more often than not the case, right? Like, let's take a turkey, for example, when you're turkey hunting. Who are the most aggressive turkeys? Your jakes, your young turkeys. Mm-hmm. Those older toms, they're like, nah, I've taken one too many spurs to the head over the years, not really looking for a fight. And I think that's oftentimes
I don't know if I kind of agree with that with the big bucks. I think the big bucks want to fight.
Big buck.
But they don't have anybody challenging them, is what I'm saying. There's nobody really putting up a fight, basically. So that's why they're not rubbing their bedding areas and stuff. They're not competing. None of the other bucks bed there, But the 2-year-olds are aggressive as hell, and they just rip the whole forest up. And a 2-year-old can rub a pretty big tree, and they'll just rip everything up, and there's rub lines all over the place. But when you start getting into the mature bucks, it gets a little bit more of, they don't leave as much sign all the time. And
Well,
a lot of times you
the
got to
two-
find those. Go ahead.
The 2-year-olds can't fight a big buck, so they're fighting the trees, right? I mean,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, but do you honestly believe that like your 6.5-year-olds and that are really wanting to mix it up? I mean, aren't they kind of avoiding a lot of that stuff?
I've seen them be pretty aggressive, but the timing's more right. Like the 2-year-olds might fight over something, a doe that's not ready or something where a buck knows, a mature buck, and he's going to fight when it's time. But if he's gonna win those battles, and he's won those battles over the years, hell yeah, he's going to fight. Yeah. I mean, there's
What if
still
he got his ass kicked?
Yeah. There's still in
You
their
think
prime.
there's that
You look at it like this. When I shoot a 6
like a
or
dog,
7-year-old
right?
deer, hold on. When I shoot a 6 or 7-year-old deer, they're usually like between 200 and 250 pounds dressed.
Yeah.
Those other deer are smaller deer. They're not really that scared of those deer.
Sure, but aren't they smarter though than to not even mess around with that kind of garbage?
All they
Over a
gotta
doe,
do
they're
is
going to mess around. Over a doe, they're going to mess around.
yeah, I mean, a mature buck comes out and struts, dude, and pins your back. Those
Absolutely.
2-year-olds are going to turn around
Seen
and not
it.
even come
We've
into
all
that
seen
cycle.
it, right? We've all seen it plenty of times. In that,
Yeah,
however,
I'm saying they might not have to fight. Those other deer will turn around and run.
Yeah.
Sure.
They're willing to. They're willing
Okay.
to.
well, that's yeah. I can get on board with that. I just, you see it so oftentimes with turkeys, right? And I don't want to get in a whole turkey.
When I
rant,
get in
but-
areas that got multiple big bucks, man, it's really a race that if you want to kill a really big buck, you want to get him before, like early November because their racks are going to be all busted up from fighting. If you get in areas where there's
Yeah.
not a lot of big bucks, you don't have to worry about that because they're not really
Yeah.
fighting much or fighting anything that's going to do any damage. But when you get into the areas that have more than one of those big bucks, they're going to go at it. You'll see that.
Right.
That buck that had 12 points when you're hunting him in September, in December he has 4 left.
And what do you think? What do you think the correlation is there?
What do you mean?
Like for bucks having to fight, like is it a buck to doe ratio?
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, there's still the same animal no matter what, but if there's less bucks to fight, more does. I mean, they don't even have to fight if there's 100 does per buck. They won't even fight the buck that's next to them. They'll just go breed another doe if they're all coming
Right.
in heat. But if there's one doe in heat, out of the 100, well, that's a whole different story. But calling and all that stuff is real relative to your population, to how skewed it is. If you have less does and more bucks or more equal on that number, your calling is going to be a lot more effective.
Sure.
Yeah,
Interesting
I've
stuff.
definitely had probably more, scared off deer from calling than actual success. But when it does come together,
Would you say that overall, or is that
Yeah,
regional? I mean, is
overall.
that like even Northwoods versus?
I would say overall, yeah,
Yeah.
So, but it's just it's a good tactic to use,
I got
Right.
some video of my son when he was 12 years old. This doe comes walking by him, and it's just coming naturally through this woods past him. And matter of fact, I think it was opening day, so it has no pressure from anybody else. It's the first time it's been hunted. Nobody had ever set up in there. He went in there, set a stand up in the tree, and he's filming. And this doe comes by, and it's just walking by browsing. And he comes to full draw, and he goes, man. And as soon as he does, that deer doesn't even hesitate. It just explodes out of there. You couldn't even have gotten a shot. And he could have just waited till it stopped because it was hesitating eating,
Yeah.
Watching too many videos, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
But,
I mean,
but
That's the thing too. I mean, I've been in a few situations where I've been afraid to stop a buck, because of that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been lucky. Like one shot for sure, I can remember in my head. Like I actually shot as he was taking a step. Thankfully it was good. Made its mark, but it's kind of risky. But stopping him and knowing that he's might not stop. It's like, what do? You know, you gotta.
I mean, every buck, I think,
A few
Go
years ago,
go ahead,
really
Dan.
big buck in the marsh that I've been hunting for quite a few years, and that buck came in exactly like I expected him, and he was coming in behind some brush, and I pulled my bow back, and I pulled back a little bit too hard, and the cable stop clicked. It just went click, real low, but the deer heard it. It was dead silent, and he just locked up and stopped and just stared straight ahead. And you get the feeling like, oh no, you got no shot through the bush, but he's only 10 yards from me, but he's through a bush. I got no shot, and I'm just hoping that when he runs, like he stops before he goes into the cattails and looks back. But so I just sit there at full draw, and a minute or two went by. And he just flicked his tail and started walking again and walked right out into my shooting lane. Beautiful. And at that point, there's no way I would ever stop him. Because if you stop him, now he's already on edge. You know what I mean? So a lot of it, my point is, a lot of it has to do with the mentality of the deer. And sometimes you know it, sometimes you don't. But if a deer's acting sketchy, you don't want to stop him. If he's acting natural, he's just coming through, that's the best one to stop.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Absolutely right. And I think every deer's got a little bit of different personality.
And the more experience you read them too.
Right. How much interaction has this deer had with other hunters or whatever the case is that puts them on edge? Like you were talking about the axis deer earlier. Are all axis deer that way, or is it just Hawaii? If you hunt axis deer in Texas, is this the same thing?
I think they are kind of jittery.
I mean, maybe that is the case, but I think with whitetails, especially, my God, walking around our city, our town, and that every night I walk until, midnight, and I encounter bucks, I encounter does, fawns, and that these are city deer. Some of them are skittish, and some of them I can literally walk within 10 feet.
Yeah.
And as long as I don't stop, and I'm just walking down the sidewalk, they don't even care. They have, they're not even worried. Right. You're not a threat.
They're in their night.
Right. Exactly. They'll sit there and stare at me. I mean, they're for me to Luke away. Nice. The producer, and say hi, Luke.
Well, fear is a learned thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. So
that's what makes it so different hunting, different properties. I mean, whether it's public or private, how heavy those deer have been hunted is a huge deal. So a lot of what we're hunting with public is we're hunting deer that have been going through the ringer for their whole lives. So when you get one like that that's 6 or 7 years old, you can't make a mistake. Anything, that thing's gone because he's got a lot of bad life experiences. They don't get to be 7 years old on most heavily hunted public land by not having an arrow shoved through their shoulder or their neck or something that they survived. But you can go hunt some managed ranch where somebody kind of deer farms and they don't have fences and they're wild deer, but they're very selective, and those same deer get a pass every time they walk by until they're mature.
Yeah,
and those deer will act like the 1 or 2 year old deer will be more skittish in the public than that deer will be on some of that private.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they're not dumb animals. I mean, they're very intelligent in that, and they adapt. You think about just how they adapt.
Their will to survive is just insane.
Right. Their will to survive. They adapt through all sorts of different environments and, landscapes.
Everything wants to kill them.
Exactly. But I think they also realize, though, that not everything wants to. I mean, you look at city deer, right? When they're just used to being around people. I think this goes back. I think, Dan, we talked about this on the last episode with Josh and that about, I'm not trying to call names or anything like that. And it doesn't matter either which way, but I had mentioned that Lee Lukoski had talked about how his deer are used to him going out and checking cameras and stuff. They're unfazed by it for the most part. They're not overly
there.
Exactly. I think deer are conditioned to their environment is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And then, you look at where you're hunting in the big woods, and they don't have a lot of interaction.
Like I said, it's nice to find deer in their natural,
Public land down in southeast Wisconsin or in the southern part of the state, and I'm not trying to just zero in on just Wisconsin, but that's where we mostly are. These deer are far more heavily pressured. Would you agree? Than the big woods, even though they're harder to find because of the vast landscape and the amount of tracts of land that you're trying to work with.
I mean,
and against predation,
city deer are hard to kill too, man. A mature buck is hard to kill no matter where they're at.
True that is true.
And no matter if you're hunting in your backyard or if you're putting food plots in or hunting up north.
A lot of it is perception. You get up in the big woods and people be like, "Wow, the deer could be anywhere. You could be here today and 5 miles from here tomorrow." And that's true, but they can do that down here too. But really what I find is they got the same kind of networks and stuff. Deer where they go. You just have to figure them out. It's not like because it's woods, they just wander 20 miles over. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe the wolves would force them out or something, but as far as where they live, they have specific spots that they adapt to, they learn, and then those are their great hideouts. If you look at, if you stumble into a big buck bedding area where one beds at least semi-regularly, like maybe 20 times a year, if he beds there 20 times a year, if you walk into that bedroom, you're going to look at it and you go, holy hell, how do I hunt this thing? He's got it perfect, and you start to see that they have a mindset, even though they say they can't think. It's like they have this thought out process of picking those beds, and they rotate through those beds. They come back to them at the same times every year. And I've studied them with cameras, and I've seen how they do it in Northwoods. I've seen how they do it down here. Matter of fact, it's pretty much the same everywhere you go, whitetail deer or whitetail deer. They have little things that are different. Like Brad brought up earlier, they move midday a lot up north. Don't know why. Maybe it's because wolves on them at night. I have no idea. I've never put my thumb on that. But it's true. Maybe it's because of the pressures down here. Maybe all the people and the movement and stuff keeps them nocturnal. There's little things like that, but the movement patterns and everything else, deer are deer wherever you go. You just have to look at it at a smaller picture. People that look at big woods always want to look at this giant area, and you really got to focus on the small area you're going to hunt.
That's good advice, yeah. Very nice.
So much I want to say. Bring up that Michael Jameson comment there. He goes, I believe they learn from experience. They don't reason. It's all response from memory. Not an expert.
Yeah, response from
just
their
another
memory
hunter
of danger, I think. That's their one thing on their mind is.
But Dan, do you disagree with that though?
No, I think I kind of have some mixed feelings about the whole can't reason thing. I think thinking is thinking. They just think to a lesser degree. I always have a problem with that because when you look at some of the stuff, like it is from experience. It certainly is from experience, but it's like if you scout bedding areas, I don't know if that person does. When you start looking at what mature bucks do, it is when you look at their beds, it's like, how the heck am I going to kill this thing? Where all the rest of them aren't like that, Mm-hmm. But and you look at this process, like when we look at a big section and you find all the bedding areas in there, you find out really quick that 90% of them are all the 1 and 2 year olds, and then you get a percentage of them that are the 3-year-olds, and then actually the bigger bucks only bed in a certain percentage of those bedding areas, but you got to find them. You know what I mean? But they're not bedding in as many spots. Like when you go and you find say you find a 130-inch 2-year-old that you'd like to kill, and you're seeing him a lot. You bump that deer, he'll move 3-4 miles. You bump a giant buck, and they just move right around you. They stay right there. They just get a little more nocturnal. They just get a little more locked down. They move over. They shift a little. They're a little more cagey. It really is a process. As they age, they change. And it gets to the point where when you're hunting mature bucks, it's like you're hunting a whole different species from hunting deer. And I think a lot of people that go through the process of hunting, they start out, they want to kill a deer. They kill a deer. Then they want to kill a buck, they kill a buck. Then they want to kill a bunch of bucks, they kill a bunch of bucks. And then they want to start holding out for something bigger. And they get into the like 2 and 3 year old class, and they start, hunting sign, and they start hunting funnels and rub lines and scrape lines and stuff. And they never graduate from that 2-3 year old to 6-7 year olds, because it's a whole different animal. You're not hunting that sign. You're hunting the way they live and the way they move through a forest. And you're hunting the spots where nobody else goes. You're thinking about the cat and mouse game of, how people and predators use the forest and how the big bucks use the forest, and zoning in on those areas. And there's usually not the sign you're seeing in the rest of the forest in the common spots, like the islands, the points, the ridge lines,
Sure.
Yeah, very good points there. And I'm excited to go deer hunting.
I was going to ask you, I was like, outside of being excited, like how, does that translate in your world too? Like in your experience?
Yeah.
And that, like, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with it, because as bucks get older, they just get smarter. I mean, they don't make stupid decisions like the younger bucks do. Like he said, a big buck will sneak around you.
I was looking to get downwind.
Yeah, they'll sneak around you, and they'll figure out what just happened more than, spooking one and it runs 2-3 miles away.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. When you talk about, the different regions, I guess the consensus here is that deer are deer for the most part.
And cheers to deer hunting.
Yeah, well, cheers to that for sure. But deer are deer, right? And they're going to do what deer do. With minimal, maybe, I guess, would you say, Dan, minimal variations based on location and pressure and things like that?
Yeah, I don't think it's a huge difference. You'll hear people all the time go, "Oh, you can't do that by me." My area, they don't do that. But it's not true. There's people, hunting.
It's just the way they hunt.
All over this country, and they're having great success. A lot of people are having a lot more success than me that hunt some of those areas, But deer are deer. I mean, look at Brad. I mean, he's having good success all over the country, trying new spots. And deer are deer, aren't they, Brad?
100%. And I just love hunting them. I love hunting deer, man.
The things that change is what does the terrain throw at you? Is it open country? You got to stalk them. Things like that. It's just a matter of how the cover lays out, how you go about it. But the deer still bed the same way. And you get an eye for it and stuff. You can just kind of look at a property. And sometimes it's instinctive just from what you've seen over the years. And you look at it and you're like, the deer are going to be right here. And that's where they're at. And it takes you a little bit to figure out why you even knew that. But it's like you get this instinct after looking at so many properties and stuff. You know where they're going to be. It's the same everywhere based on the terrain and stuff.
Sure. Man. Good stuff.
I do have a bear tag this year, though. That's going to change up hopefully that's done before the season starts. But I don't know. I've never killed a bear, so I
Take your
just
time and enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. That's for sure. And I do like bear meat. I know that. So I'm gonna have some cookouts and sausage and stuff.
How you going after?
With the bow, probably somewhere right around Wausau area. It's just a zone C tag or two. Yeah, zone C.
My biggest bear came from zone C in Wausau.
Nice. That's about where I'm hunting. So I'm looking forward to it.
Are you going to use compound or trap?
As long as I can start spending a little more time shooting every day, I'd love to get one with the longbow.
Yeah.
So are you baiting? Did you hire somebody or?
Yeah, it's through a friend of a friend, and we have some family land in that area as well that I'm gonna put a bait out just for fun and see if we get some coming in. There are some bears down there, but they tend to move out pretty quick, especially when the corn and the acorns start falling and stuff. So
sure.
But we do have a guy. He kind of does the bear hunting, and he's a friend of a friend. We're gonna do some a little bit of photo and video work kind of in trade for that. And it should be a really awesome experience. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it was actually a subject I really wanted to get into a little bit tonight, but we're really pushing here. We're getting on the 2 hour mark here pretty quick or whatever. But if I was going to say, if I ask you one question about filming in that, what adding that to your hunt and wanting to document that, what has that brought, and what are some of those challenges? If you could just give me a little brief synopsis of that.
It's something awesome to be able to look back at your shot if you can get the shot on film, and that way in your head like where you hit that deer.
Right.
It definitely helps out a lot more than I can count. I've used my footage to be like to feel good about the shot, or to maybe we should probably let this thing overnight, and that's good to have. It's good to watch back with your kids and family and like whatever YouTube and stuff like that. It's just something I really enjoy doing. And you learn from your mistakes when you're filming. I mean, I've had a few bucks I should have killed because I tried to get them on film, and now I'm kind of past that where I'll always have my camera with me, but if it comes down to me getting a shot or getting it on film, like I'm gonna shoot the deer now. Like I don't really, but I think when we get older, it's gonna be fun to look back at that stuff too and be like, oh, let's watch some hunting videos.
But and so what do you use for a camera, just real quick?
I use a Sony A7 IV.
Right.
So
and multiple lenses.
Yeah, a couple different lenses on it. But nowadays, you can pick up a really nice just Sony 4K video camera that's much more user friendly for hunting, self filming and stuff. Where it's kind of point, shoot, zoom, and man, you can't go wrong with that.
Sure.
What
are the drawbacks for you?
Hauling more gear around, not being as lightweight as I'd like to be, because I like to pack light as it is,
Right.
It's like I'm always lugging around that extra 5
camera,
pounds of shit.
the arm, another camera arm. Yeah.
But to me, it's really more just because I really love to do it.
Yeah.
And I do get some enjoyment out of sharing the hunts as well, and hopefully share the right things where people are like, I want to go hunting,
Sure. Yeah.
But
right, Dan, it's no joke having to bring extra equipment out with you, especially on public land, and you're trying to get that set up right and picking the right tree or whatever the situation is, and then getting camera stuff set up, a camera arm and all that stuff. It's a whole nother.
I'm a minimalist. I don't take all that much crap. So I got a camera along, but I fit it in a pocket on my vest. And I have a small camera arm that attaches to my tree stand. I got my tree stand, my sticks.
But you're kind of addicted to the camera too, right? You're taking that along.
Oh yeah, I couldn't see hunting any other way anymore.
Right.
It's just what I do. It's a big part of it. I love it. I love documenting what's going on and stuff. I always thought I'd go back and watch the videos more. I never go back and watch my past videos. I get done editing them. I never do. I always think I will, but I don't. Not unless I'm going to edit something new and use part of it or something.
Sure.
But it is cool to have it out there.
I like it too. Like if you got deer coming in, you're not going to hunt, shoot them. It's a smaller buck, whatever. I just kind of like taking that moment in and, videoing them.
With those small bucks.
And then you can see how they're moving. You can see their facial expressions. I mean, it's cool to watch that stuff.
I've got so much of that content and I do nothing with it. To be honest with you.
Yeah.
I've got so much of that. I could fill up an SD card. Like it's ridiculous.
I lost my point.
Well, we are getting to that 2-hour mark here. So yeah. Dan, do you have any other last thoughts?
I was going to say that when I film these hunts, a lot of times, and I don't know if this is like this for you, Brad, but like I'll shoot a deer or something and I'll watch what happened and stuff, and you get it on film and stuff. Then you go back to see the shot and you watch the footage, and you see something totally different than what you remember, and it's like. It teaches you that you don't always things don't always happen the way you think they happened. Like last year, or 2 years ago, I shot a buck in Iowa that came in, and I waited till he quartered away from me, and I put it right behind his shoulder, watched the shot, and we couldn't find that buck. And when I played the video back, he had turned and he was walking towards me, and
Oh,
I
wow.
shot him in the shoulder, but it was like I totally saw that different. Now, part of that's my eyesight, maybe, and stuff like that.
Or
But
could it just be the camera angle?
no, not at all. I
No.
mean, I definitely shot that buck quartering towards me when I thought I put it right behind his shoulder, quartering away.
Okay.
And that's what I saw. That's what I remembered. And so the camera doesn't lie, is my point.
Yeah.
Sure.
You look at the camera and you see some things that are like, oh, okay, you know.
Yep.
And you know, I like this. I'd like to think it teaches me some sort of lesson where you know, you're looking at things a little differently because you know something like that happened, instead of just always believing in, you know, that it couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. So,
Well,
You
yeah.
ever have that happen, Brad? Or
I've had it happen where I thought I made a perfect shot before, and I've like, whoa, what, you know, it wasn't perfect. So it's very similar to what you're saying that you saw happen but didn't. So I haven't had one like turn on me like that, but I mean, it's.
I've had one. I've had just the opposite effect, and that where I was filming, it was actually that buck right up there, the one above your head there, the top one there.
Nice.
And I thought I made a much worse shot than I did, based on the buck's reaction and stuff. That buck was dead that day, like before I even got out of the stand, and I sat in that stand for quite a while. And I revealed I was watching the footage over and over again, and every time I looked at it, I'm like, everything changed. Like I must have watched it 12 times in that before I finally. And then we got back. I went back to the bunkhouse and then put the SD card into a TV and that. I was like, no, like, it ended up being guts, liver. It was a hard quarter. It was guts, liver, lung.
Nice.
And that buck was dead before I even got back to
Yeah.
the
See,
bunkhouse.
it's just nice to be able to view that.
Right.
And, you know, and you learn, sometimes you even just learn a little thing on how they react or, you know, what they're doing if they hear your shot go off, and see how far they ducked by the time you shot. And, you know,
Yeah.
it's just fun to watch all that.
Exactly. It's great to, I mean, regardless of what you do with the material, whether you share it, it's nice to have it, you know. Go ahead, Dan.
people are asking where they can watch your videos, Brad.
Go on YouTube and hit Get Out and Hunt. It's a newer channel, but I've got a couple up there already. Or you can go on and check out. I'm on some Chase Nation stuff for the past like 7 years or whatever since we started. So, but everything new that I'm doing, I'm just gonna put on Get Out and Hunt, and it's just hunting.
And you got a good Instagram page too.
Yeah, I do some stuff on Instagram.
Brad Werwinski.
That's about it. YouTube, Instagram. I don't do anything really anywhere else. So
Yeah, Get Out and Hunt. Check them out.
yeah, thanks a lot, guys. It's good chatting, hunting.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
Do that anytime, Dan. It was good, good talking with you. And what do we got coming up? You got trade shows coming up? Are you doing any trade shows coming up, Dan?
Well, we got Hunt Stock
Hunt stock, yeah.
in Massachusetts. We're doing in August.
Oh,
This
Massachusetts.
weekend, yeah. They're
Nice.
probably going to come here this next year. I think I got them talked into it. They're going to come here in 2026. What they got going on is just so incredible. The people that they get together to do that and stuff, they bring together just a great cast of great hunters. It's not like any other show.
Cool.
So
Check
that'll
it
be
out.
cool when they come here. A lot of people are asking about this weekend too. If you don't mind, I'd just like to.
Yeah,
say
Dan,
something.
it's your show. Do what you want.
Yeah. So, this weekend we're having a get together in Black River Falls. Me and Eric and Ricky and all the guys are going to camp out overnight at Merlin Lambert Campground, which is just north of Black River Falls on 59. And Saturday, we're all going to meet up at Perkins right by 59 and 94 and have breakfast at 8 a.m. And then 9 a.m. we're going to head to where the bear bait buck was and do some scouting. And then at about 5 o'clock Saturday evening. We're going to have a get together at the campground and let anybody come, just hang out. It's going to be a fun time. Going to be a lot of people there.
You're gonna have like tour buses of people coming now. Like,
Yeah.
Let's party.
I don't know. I'll wait till the last minute to announce it. Then most people have plans, so then we're good. Then we
Yeah. He said it.
That sounds
I got
like
the
a
message
fun-
from him
sounds
Friday.
like a
He's like,
fun
just an
time.
FYI.
Nice.
I just like
Forget
to
about
do stuff that's every now and then that's free for people that don't have a lot of money and or just want to come hang out or whatever. And I appreciate everybody watching and participating in all the stuff we do, and they buy my shirts and all that kind of crap, and it's just one way to give back, and it's fun too. I like meeting the people. So
Sweet, dude.
Dan likes to talk
Yeah.
just a little bit, not too much, right? Right, Dan?
I guess, yeah.
Well,
That's why we're here tonight.
I enjoyed hanging out. It was a great time.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hunting Beast Report. And thanks, Brad, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, too. Appreciate it.
Make sure you check out Get Out and Hunt. Dan, thanks for joining as always, because we wouldn't be here without you. Until next time, guys.
That's somebody else's show.
We'll see you guys next week. Stay tuned. We're pretty excited about next week's guest. We'll announce that when it gets a little bit closer, but stay tuned, guys. That's just a little teaser. Real excited for next week's guest. So
Right on.
all right. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.